50 Cent just lit the fuse on what might be the most devastating explosion hip-hop has ever witnessed. And this time, the blast is headed straight for Jay-Z and Beyoncé's front door. The timeline has been on fire ever since 50 Cent sat down and confirmed that the 4 episodes everybody just finished binge-watching were only the tip of the iceberg, because according to him, he is sitting on a mountain of unseen footage, unheard allegations, and brand new witnesses who only stepped forward after the documentary aired. And here is the part that has the entire industry holding its breath. 50 Cent says he does not even need Netflix anymore. He is taking the rest of it straight to YouTube, where nobody can tell him what to cut, what to blur, or what to leave on the editing room floor. Now listen, because this story has layers on top of layers. Insiders are whispering that Beyoncé is seriously weighing a step back from the spotlight, and people close to the situation say the timing is absolutely not a coincidence. For years, Jay-Z and Beyoncé were allegedly 2 of Diddy's closest allies behind closed doors, and now that 50 Cent has cracked the vault wide open, everybody who ever stood next to Diddy is reportedly rethinking everything. The question tearing through the internet right now is a brutal one. Will Beyoncé distance herself from Jay-Z to protect what is left of her empire, or is she quietly preparing to exit the industry entirely? Because if even half of what 50 Cent is holding ever sees daylight, people in the know say the fallout could be unlike anything music has ever seen. Let's rewind for a second, because context is everything here. When 50 Cent's Diddy documentary dropped on Netflix, it instantly became one of the most talked about projects in the culture. For episodes of jaw-dropping footage, much of it recorded by Diddy's own personal videographer in the days leading up to his arrest, had viewers glued to their screens. Critics called it fearless. Fans called it historic. And 50 Cent? According to him, that was just the warm-up. During a sit-down on Sherri Shepherd's show, 50 Cent did not even try to play coy. When Sherri pointed out that the personal footage of Diddy shocked a lot of people, and that knowing how 50 Cent moves, there was no way that was everything he had, 50 Cent did not hesitate for 1 second. He confirmed right there on daytime television that some material simply could not make the final cut, because Netflix only gave him 4 episodes to work with. And when Sherri asked the question, everybody at home was screaming at their screens, does this mean a part 2 is coming? 50 Cent gave an answer that sent a chill through every boardroom in the entertainment business. He said he is just going to put it on YouTube. And here's the kicker. He did not say it once. People who watched the full interview noticed he repeated it multiple times, and he was laughing while he said it, like a man who knows exactly what he is holding and cannot wait for the world to see it. Phew. If you know anything about 50 Cent, you know that man does not bluff about receipts. So why YouTube? Why would 50 Cent walk away from the biggest streaming platform on the planet and take the most explosive material of his career to a free platform? Well, a lot of observers think the answer is actually pretty simple. Liability. See, when you are working with a platform like Netflix, there are lawyers hovering over every single frame. There are entire legal teams whose only job is to decide what can and cannot air, and sources suggest that is exactly why certain names and certain stories never made it into those 4 episodes. On YouTube, 50 Cent answers to nobody. He becomes the network, the editor, and the distributor all at once. No censors, no corporate gatekeepers, just a hard drive, and reportedly over 140 hours of material. Let that number sink in for a second. 140 hours. The Netflix audience saw 4 episodes. 4. If the whispers are accurate, what the public has seen so far is a fraction of what exists. And according to 50 Cent himself, the vault is still growing. When Sherri asked him whether any new tips had come in since the documentary aired, he admitted that people are coming forward now who were too afraid to talk before. Apparently, watching the documentary made witnesses feel safer, made them feel like somebody was finally listening. And every single one of those new voices, 50 Cent says, is going to end up on his channel. Now, you might be wondering how 50 Cent even got his hands on this footage in the first place, because this is where the story goes from shocking to straight-up cinematic. And trust me, we are getting to that, because the way this footage changed hands is a whole scandal inside the scandal. But before we get there, you need to understand who is allegedly terrified of what is on those tapes. Because according to the chatter online, at the very top of that list sits a man who spent decades building a reputation as untouchable. Jay-Z. Reports swirling around the industry claim Jay-Z knew 50 Cent had him in his sights, but he never imagined 50 would get his hands on the kind of footage revealed in this documentary. And now, people say, Jay-Z understands it is only a matter of time before clips surface allegedly showing him and Diddy moving together behind the scenes. 50 has already dropped public hints about it. He has not been subtle. He has never been subtle a day in his life. And if you have followed this rivalry, you know this moment has been building for over 20 years. Because here is what a lot of casual fans do not realize. The tension between 50 Cent and Jay-Z is not new. It is not some fresh beef cooked up for clicks. This is one of the longest Cold Wars in hip-hop history, and according to people who were around for all of it, Jay-Z spent years trying to box 50 out of the biggest rooms in the business, only to watch 50 come back stronger every single time. And now, critics say, 50 Cent is collecting his revenge with interest, and Beyonce might end up caught in the crossfire right beside her husband. Let's talk about that rivalry, because the details are wild. According to industry veterans who have spoken on it, the fundamental difference between the two men has always been how they treat the people around them. 50 Cent is known for pulling people up. He signs artists, he builds stars, he puts people in position to eat, and he stays approachable. Folks from his circle say you can still reach him, still talk to him, still get a meeting. Jay-Z, on the other hand, has faced years of accusations that he moves in the opposite direction, suppressing competition, gatekeeping opportunities, and distancing himself from the very people who helped build him. As one voice in the culture put it, Jay got to remember the people that made him. And then there is the Super Bowl story, which honestly still blows my mind every time it comes up. Word going around is that Jay-Z did not want 50 Cent anywhere near that Super Bowl halftime stage. Let me say that again, because it sounds unbelievable. One of the best-selling artists of his generation, a man whose mentor is Dr. Dre and whose brother-in-arms is Eminem, was allegedly being blocked from performing at the biggest show on earth. And who stepped in? Eminem. According to multiple accounts, Eminem drew a line in the sand and made it clear he was not doing the show unless 50 Cent was part of it. That is loyalty. That is what real brotherhood looks like. And people say 50 Cent never forgot either side of that moment. The brother who fought for him, and the billionaire who allegedly tried to erase him. Now, to be fair, some folks close to the situation have downplayed it, saying they are not sure Jay-Z personally tried to stop anything, that maybe it was other people in the machinery. But even the people saying that admit the two men were always locked in competition. They will remind you that 50 Cent came into the game taking shots at Jay-Z and the whole Rockefeller dynasty, that there were lyrical jabs going back years, and that Jay-Z himself once warned his own camp that 50 was coming for the crown. And here is the part nobody can argue with. When you line up the numbers, 50 Cent, Eminem, and Dr. Dre built one of the most commercially unstoppable runs the genre has ever recorded. Nobody outsold that camp in their prime. Nobody. So when people wonder why 50 seems to be enjoying this moment so much, why he was laughing in that Sherri interview when he mentioned YouTube, veterans of the culture say you have to understand the math of it. For 20 years, 50 Cent watched Jay-Z get protected by the machine. Protected by media relationships, protected by billionaire friendships, protected by an image so polished that mainstream outlets treated him like he was beyond criticism. And now, in 50 Cent's view, the machine is cracking. The documentary proved the appetite is there. Millions of people pressed play. And the man doing the exposing is the one person Jay-Z was never able to silence, never able to buy, and never able to freeze out. Phew. But here is where the story takes its darkest turn, because this is not just about a rivalry anymore. This is about what insiders claim Jay-Z and Beyoncé allegedly knew, and when they allegedly knew it. And while we are on the subject of the documentary itself, people forget how improbable this whole moment actually is. A rapper, a man whose entire brand was built on mixtapes, beefs, and vitamin water, just executive produced the most consequential piece of music journalism in a generation. News anchors who spent years tiptoeing around Diddy's name were suddenly playing clips from 50 Cent's project on primetime. Universities are going to study this. A rival artist did what billion-dollar media companies were too nervous, too compromised, or too connected to even attempt. And that, more than anything, might explain the laughter in that interview. He was not just laughing at what he has. He was laughing at who finally had the courage to show it. According to allegations circulating online, Jay-Z was reportedly present at some of Diddy's infamous private gatherings, the same parties that have now become the center of one of the biggest scandals in entertainment history. Some claims go even further, alleging that Jay-Z was unfaithful to Beyoncé in those environments, and that Beyoncé herself was aware of what was going on and chose silence. Certain allegations even place Beyoncé at these events, standing right alongside Jay-Z and Diddy. Now, to be clear, these are allegations, and neither Jay-Z nor Beyoncé has been charged with anything. But the chatter claims they were among a select inner circle who understood exactly what Diddy was doing behind closed doors, and critics argue that instead of speaking up, they looked the other way and helped protect a man who is now behind bars. And that silence, according to commentators, is starting to cost them. Reports claim Beyoncé has been hemorrhaging followers, with some accounts suggesting the numbers are dropping day after day, while she posts from Paris like everything is perfectly fine. Critics have pointed out the contrast, the glamorous photos, the curated captions, the business-as-usual energy, while one of the biggest storms in music history swirls around her household. On talk shows and podcasts, the question keeps getting asked louder and louder. When are the Carters going to say something? Anything? And so far, the answer has been nothing but silence. Some voices have come to Beyoncé's defense, arguing it is not her place to speak on her husband's associations, that she has enough on her plate already. But others fire right back, pointing to old interviews and old footage, claiming she knows exactly who she married. One commentator put it bluntly, saying he would not dump on Beyoncé, that the woman has bigger fish to fry, but that when it comes to her husband, she knows exactly who he is. And that sentiment, fair or not, is echoing across the internet right now. Then there is the claim that has people genuinely disturbed. Former industry insider Gene Deal, who worked closely with Diddy for years, has spoken publicly about what he says he witnessed, and one of his most repeated claims involves the very beginning of Jay-Z and Beyoncé's relationship. According to Gene Deal, people inside the business knew the relationship allegedly started when Beyoncé was still in her late teens, while Jay-Z was already in his 30s. Gene Deal described being in clubs with the two of them back in the late 90s, claiming Beyoncé was not even old enough to legally be in those venues, yet there she was, dating a man around 30 years old. Critics have seized on those claims and built a much darker narrative around them. Some argue that if the timeline is accurate, Beyoncé grew up inside Jay-Z's world, conditioned from a young age to see his behavior as normal, which they claim might explain why she later appeared unbothered by the stories that followed him. There is even a long-running internet theory questioning Beyoncé's actual age, fueled by a past comment from Gabrielle Union, who said she went to junior high school with Beyoncé, even though Gabrielle Union is considered several years older than the age Beyoncé publicly claims. Now, is that proof of anything? No. But in the court of public opinion, details like that pour gasoline on an already raging fire. And the allegations do not stop there. To illustrate how deep people believe this goes, some critics have gone as far as claiming that other major stars were harmed by the power dynamics surrounding Jay-Z, with accusations that Beyoncé helped enable that environment. These are heavy, unverified claims, but they are being cited constantly as the reason both Jay-Z and Beyoncé allegedly fear what further exposure could bring. The narrative goes like this. Once the truth starts to unravel, countless alleged victims could come forward, and the scrutiny landing on the Carter household would be relentless. In fact, one attorney who has been vocal in this space said on television that he had already been working with 3 alleged victims connected to the Carters who were preparing to come forward. When he was asked directly whether Beyoncé might be implicated in any of it, he said he hoped not, but added that she was around. He repeated that he was not going to pile on her, but when it came to her husband, he said plainly, she knows exactly who he is. Those words have been clipped, shared, and replayed millions of times, and every replay tightens the pressure a little more. Now here is the detail that really ties this whole thing together, because according to the people who knew both men, Jay-Z and Diddy were never just casual industry friends. Gene Deal and others have painted a picture of 2 men who understood power, control, and influence long before the public caught on. The difference, they say, was style. Diddy was loud. Diddy was everywhere. Diddy wanted the world to see the yachts, the parties, the champagne. Jay-Z moved silently, operating in boardrooms, surrounding himself with influential figures, building layers of protection between himself and anything that could ever stick. And for a long time, that strategy worked flawlessly. But here's what people find so fascinating now. Insiders say Diddy actually used to despise Jay-Z. According to accounts from that era, back in the early 2000s, Diddy was allegedly trying to get Ja Rule to go at Jay-Z, stirring conflict behind the scenes. When asked why, the people who were there could only guess. Maybe it was the vacuum left after Biggie's death. Maybe Diddy figured if he kept the 2 camps at war, he could rise up right through the middle of both of them. Whatever the reason, the rivalry eventually cooled, and the 2 men became publicly inseparable, trading stages, vacations, and billionaire handshakes. And that friendship is now being described as the single biggest mistake Jay-Z ever made. Gene Deal did not mince words when he talked about how close the 2 really were. He scoffed at the idea that they were not friends, pointing to the public displays, Diddy patting Jay-Z on stage and telling the world that nobody could call him Sean but Jay-Z, and Jay-Z reportedly saying the same thing in return. Gene Deal even claimed the 2 were so tight they had a running private joke between them. His point was simple. You do not get to stand that close to a man for 20 years and then, when the feds kick the door in, suddenly claim you barely knew him. because that is exactly what happened, according to the reports. When the walls started closing in on Diddy, a statement came out from Jay-Z's legal camp suggesting he was not really friends with Diddy, and the internet collectively raised an eyebrow. Not friends. There are decades of photos, award show moments, and business ventures that say otherwise. There is footage of the two of them embracing at events, laughing about black excellence, sitting side by side like royalty. One viral moment even caught Jay-Z joking that this was the one time he would be seen with Diddy that year, and at the time people laughed. Now, people watch that same clip and hear something completely different. Critics say trusting Diddy is the gravest miscalculation Jay-Z and Beyoncé ever made. Because if there is one thing the documentary made crystal clear, it is that Diddy looks out for Diddy, period. Commentators point out that Diddy allegedly turned on the people closest to him, including, stunningly, his own attorney. And that brings us to the part of this story that honestly sounds like a movie script, because the way 50 Cent got this footage, and whose private conversations ended up on tape, might be the most outrageous twist in the entire saga. So here is how the footage ended up in 50 Cent's hands, and buckle up, because every detail of this is jaw-dropping. According to people familiar with the situation, Diddy had hired a personal videographer to chronicle his life. And not occasionally. We are talking around the clock, 24 hours a day, on call whether he was on a yacht, on a plane, in a mansion, wherever. Diddy reportedly wanted everything filmed, because sources say he was planning to release his own documentary someday, on his own terms, telling his own version of the story. He wanted to control the narrative before anyone else could. But here's the thing about Diddy that people in the industry have whispered about for years. According to former associates, he had a habit of hiring young, hungry videographers who were so desperate for the opportunity that they would accept rock-bottom rates just to be in the room. And even then, when the invoices came in, the complaints allegedly started. Too many hours. Too much money. Calls to the office. Calls to the chief of staff. Disputes over what was owed. And this is where the whole thing collapsed for him. Because if you have a contract with a videographer and you refuse to honor that contract, depending on the terms, the rights to that footage can end up in play. And according to the widely repeated account, that is exactly what happened. The footage went to the highest bidder, and the highest bidder was 50. Now, Diddy's side and Jay-Z's side are reportedly pushing a very different version. Word going around is that Jay-Z has been exploring legal options, including a possible cease and desist to block any further release, and that both camps are claiming the footage was obtained through illegal means. But 50 Cent's position, according to those same reports, is that every frame was acquired legally, purchased outright after Diddy failed to pay his own people. And if you listen to the breakdown from the streets, the logic is hard to argue with. A contract was breached, the footage became leverage, and 50 Cent showed up with the check. As one commentator put it, this is business. Everybody is not in love with you. Everybody is not loyal to the point of bankruptcy. And the detail that turned this from a business dispute into a legal earthquake? Some of those recordings allegedly captured conversations between Diddy and his own defense attorney, Mark Agnifilo, the lawyer many credit with saving Diddy from a possible life sentence. Legal analysts have called this situation awful, pointing out that Mark Agnifilo clearly believed those phone calls were private, protected, attorney-client conversations, and he had no idea a videographer was rolling while he was telling his client, in brutally honest terms, that he was screwing up the case. Knowing that raw footage of your own lawyer's private counsel might be sitting in 50's archive with a YouTube upload button attached to it has reportedly sent shockwaves through every legal team connected to this case. And let me add one more layer to the footage story, because the breakdown that has been circulating from people who claim to know how Diddy operated is almost too bold to believe. According to that account, Diddy only wanted young videographers around him, hungry kids who saw the access as their big break, because veterans would have known their worth and invoiced accordingly. The young ones would chase him from city to city, yacht to yacht, logging absurd hours, sometimes over 100 hours in a single week, believing the exposure alone was worth it. Then the invoices would land, and the disputes would begin. The office would question the hours. The chief of staff would get looped in, and somewhere in that friction, a contract would get breached. And a contract that is breached is a contract that no longer protects anybody. That footage, the argument goes, became an asset with a price tag. And there was exactly one man in the culture with the money, the motive, and the nerve to wire the payment without blinking. He did. And everything we are watching now is the result of that one transaction. Now let's get into the part that has Beyoncé's name trending day after day, because according to the growing speculation, the marriage itself may be on the line. Reports claim that if 50 Cent actually releases the next wave of material, Jay-Z and Beyoncé could be headed toward a divorce, and people who follow the family closely say the signs have been there for a while. Insiders suggest Beyoncé has reached her limit, that she feels Jay-Z's controversies and the endless allegations of infidelity keep dragging her name through mud she did not create, undermining an image she spent more than 2 decades building brick by brick. And you have to remember who we are talking about here. Beyoncé is not just a singer. She is a brand fortress. Every era, every album, every public appearance is calculated with almost military precision. After the infamous elevator incident, after the cheating scandal that played out across an entire visual album, Beyoncé chose to stay. She rebuilt. She turned the pain into art, and the art into hundreds of millions of dollars. But people close to the situation reportedly say this moment feels different. Heavier. More serious. The kind of storm you cannot choreograph your way out of. And that is why the rumor that she is considering stepping back from the spotlight altogether has caught so much traction, because for the first time, stepping back might be the only move that protects everything she built. Meanwhile, 50 has been twisting the knife in that way only he can. In a recent interview, he went back to one of his favorite topics, the trophies. He pointed out, half laughing, that Jay-Z's award shelf changed completely after the marriage. His words were that Jay-Z had won Grammy before, and then after signing what he called the marriage contract, the trophies came rolling in. And when the hosts pressed him on what he meant, 50 Cent leaned into it, suggesting that once Jay-Z was no longer viewed as a street rapper, but as a businessman, an entrepreneur, a family man standing next to Beyoncé, the entire industry started treating him differently. The accolades followed the image. And the image, 50 Cent implied, was built on the marriage. Think about what he is really saying there. He is arguing that the untouchable Jay-Z, the billionaire, the mogul, the legend, is a brand that depends entirely on Beyoncé standing next to him. And if Beyoncé steps away, whether from the marriage or from the spotlight entirely, the whole structure wobbles. That is the chess move buried inside the trolling. And whether you love 50 Cent or cannot stand him, you have to admit, the man understands leverage better than almost anyone in the business. And speaking of that interview, there was one story 50 Cent told that has been replayed non-stop, because it perfectly captures the strange, tangled history between him and the Carters. According to Fifth, years ago in Vegas, he was talking to Jay-Z when Beyoncé suddenly appeared, jumping down from a window ledge near where they were standing, approaching with an energy 50 Cent described as ready, like she thought something was about to go down between the two men. He said he genuinely did not know how to react. He just kept thinking, this is Beyoncé, what is happening right now? And the host lost it, joking that he was lucky Solange was not there, which, if you remember the elevator footage, is a reference that needed no explanation. Now, 50 told that story with a laugh, and honestly, some people hear it as a funny moment, a wife stepping up because she thought her husband might be in a confrontation. But others hear something else. They hear confirmation of what critics have said for years, that Beyoncé has always been positioned as a protector of the Carter brand, ready to physically insert herself into Jay-Z's business. And when you stack that story next to the current silence, the follower losses, and the divorce whispers, people cannot help but ask what changed. Why was she ready to jump off a ledge for him in Vegas, but unwilling to say a single word for him now? The critics have their answer ready. They say the Vegas Beyoncé did not know what she allegedly knows now. Or maybe she did know, and the difference is that back then, the walls were not closing in. Back then, the documentaries had not aired. Back then, the footage was still sitting on a hard drive nobody could find. And that, according to the loudest voices online, is the real story of this entire saga. Not the parties, not the rumors, but the moment the receipts changed hands, and every alliance built in the dark suddenly had to survive the light. And do not forget, there is still one massive unanswered question hanging over all of this. One that 50 Cent himself left dangling in that interview with a grin on his face. What exactly is in those remaining hours? Who else walks through those frames? Because according to the speculation, if Jay-Z is anywhere on those tapes, he will not be alone. The guest list for those infamous gatherings have been whispered about for years, and people say some of the most powerful names in entertainment are praying right now that 50's YouTube channel stays quiet. Stay with me, because what the industry veterans are saying about those guest lists is the most chilling part of this entire story. And there is one more thread in this web that deserves daylight, because it shows how far back the unease really goes. For years, certain voices in the culture were treated as punchlines every time they raised questions about Diddy's world. Comedians who joked about the parties were called haters. Insiders who hinted at what went on behind those mansion doors were called bitter. Radio hosts who asked the wrong question allegedly found doors closing quietly in their faces. The pattern, according to the people now speaking up, was always the same. Mock the messenger, protect the machine, keep the money moving. Well, look around. The messengers aged like prophets. Every joke that used to get an eye roll is getting a second listen now. And clips that were once dismissed as crazy talk are being re-uploaded with millions of views and comment sections full of people typing the same 3 words over and over. He told us that is the environment this second wave of footage would be landing in. Not a skeptical audience, a prepared one. An audience that has already watched one giant fall and is now scanning the horizon, wondering out loud who is next. And according to the loudest whispers in the industry, Jay-Z's name is at the very top of that list of names people are watching. Because here is what the veterans keep circling back to. For decades, Jay-Z operated with a level of protection that bordered on mythical. Mainstream media treated him gently. Business partners vouched for him. The narrative was always the same. The hustler who made it out, the billionaire blueprint, the American dream in a tailored suit. And Diddy, for all his chaos, enjoyed a version of that same shield, right up until the moment he did not. People who watched that documentary say the scariest lesson in it was not about Diddy at all. It was about how many people knew and how long they stayed quiet, and how the entire ecosystem around a powerful man will hold its silence until the exact moment silence stops being profitable. That is the shift 50 is betting on. He is betting that the silence is over. Every day the documentary sits on those Netflix charts, another person who used to be afraid starts doing the math, and some of them, according to 50, are already dialing his number. He said it himself. People feel more comfortable now. They watch 4 episodes and realize the sky did not fall on the people who told the truth. And if the pattern holds, the second wave of material will not just be footage. It will be voices, names, dates, details that cannot be waved away as internet gossip. Now, is any of this proven? No. Allegations are allegations, and Jay-Z and Beyoncé have both earned the presumption that every American gets. Their defenders point out, correctly, that being photographed at a party is not a crime, that friendship is not conspiracy, and that 50 Cent has made a second career out of trolling people he has personal grudges against. And that is fair. This is the same 50 who once turned a feud into a hashtag and a hashtag into a liquor commercial. The man weaponizes attention like nobody alive. Skeptics say that all this is one long, brilliant marketing campaign dressed up as accountability. But here is the counterargument, and it is a strong one. Marketing campaigns do not usually end with federal convictions. Marketing campaigns do not usually cause a music mogul's entire legacy to be re-examined under oath. Whatever 50 Cent's motives are, and they are probably a cocktail of revenge, profit, and genuine disgust, the material he already released was real enough to break viewing records and real enough to have the most powerful couple in music reportedly consulting lawyers. Smoke machines do not produce that kind of fire. And honestly, the credibility question cuts both ways, so let's be fair and lay it out. 50 Cent is not a journalist. He has never claimed to be one. What he is, according to both his fans and his fiercest critics, is a man with a photographic memory for every slight, every closed door, and every handshake that ever turned into a knife. This is the same strategist who feuded with Ja Rule until the feud became folklore, who turned a beef with Rick Ross into content before content was even a business model, who has spent 2 decades proving that he never forgets and rarely forgives. So when people ask whether his motives are pure, the honest answer is probably no. Motives in this game are never pure. But impure motives do not make footage fake. They do not make witnesses imaginary. And they do not explain why. According to 50, brand new voices keep stepping forward with stories that were too dangerous to tell while Diddy was still walking free. That last part deserves a moment of real weight. Because buried inside all the trolling and all the laughter is something genuinely serious. 50 said it plainly on daytime TV. When people watch others tell the truth and survive it, more people find their courage. The documentary, whatever you think of its producer's agenda, functioned as a signal flare. It told every silent witness in that world the same message. You are not the only one anymore. And if even a fraction of those 140 hours contains new voices telling new stories, then this is not a victory lap for a rival. It is the second act of a reckoning, and the first act already shattered viewing records. So where does this all end? That is the question ricocheting through every label office, every PR firm, and every group chat in the industry right now. If 50 follows through and uploads the remaining archive, the ripple effects could reshape the entire hierarchy of the culture. Careers could end. Marriages could end. And reputations that took 30 years to build could come apart in 30 seconds of footage. Or maybe the tapes never drop. Maybe the legal pressure works. Maybe settlements get signed. Maybe the hardest drives stay locked in a vault. And this whole moment becomes just another chapter in the longest chess match hip-hop has ever seen. But if you had to bet, Bet on the man who has never once backed down from a fight in his entire public life. 50 built his name on saying the things other people were afraid to say and doing the things other people were afraid to do. He got shot 9 times and turned it into a legend. He got blackballed and turned it into an empire. And now, according to everyone watching, he is holding the one weapon that money cannot buy and lawyers cannot delete. Footage. Receipts. 140 hours of the truth, sitting one upload away from changing everything. So now I want to hear from you, because this conversation is bigger than any one video. Do you believe 50 Cent is genuinely sitting on material that could bring down Jay-Z and Beyoncé? Or is this the greatest bluff in hip-hop history? Do you think Beyoncé should distance herself from Jay-Z? Or is walking away from the spotlight exactly what the people coming for her want? And the big one, the question dividing the entire timeline right now. Is 50 a truth-teller dragging the industry into the light, or a bitter rival settling a 20-year score with somebody else's dirty laundry? Drop your take in the comments section below, because I read every single one, and trust me, this story is nowhere near finished. The next upload could change everything, and when it does, you are going to want to say you saw it coming. Sound off below, and I will see you in the next one, because if even half of what is being whispered is true, the aftershocks have not even started yet.